Oh. Let's call Drake. Go busy again because they have Souza and they don't want to take calls because they have a guest host. Calling the Drake Toll Show, 7 o'clock Central, July 23rd. Is it going to? Are they what? Do they have caller ID and they know my number and they fucking ignore me? Or do they not take phone calls because they have a guest host? Or does he just fucking sometimes he's just not in the mood to take calls? So he just doesn't take calls because I don't have to. I mean, is that the Westwood one lets their fucking radio host do this? Say, look, if you're not in the mood to take calls, you don't have to take calls. We want you to like be in control of your show. We want you to make your show. Because if you don't like taking calls and we force you to take calls, and it's going to put you in a miserable mood, it's going to reflect on the end product, right? We don't want that. And if you want to take a lot of calls, fine. Like we don't want to. But at the same time, if you want your people to take call, first of all, you shouldn't be like, well, we want to host, but we don't care if they take calls or not. That doesn't. I'd be like, if you're like a program director or like the radio station, boss, you should be able to say, hey, I want this to be a place that takes calls. Nick Custis never takes calls. The GM people never take calls. They just want to hear themselves speak. I guess Black and Abdel are trying to do that. Do whatever you think is going to make your show successful. That's what they say. And if Jake's like, I'm not taking any calls because you know what? I only get like one call. And they shouldn't think I'm a prank caller. I give good points and I'm entertaining and they laugh. But if they're starting to think, for all you know, what if Black and Abdullah talked to Drake and like, oh, Carl, dude, he was calling our show. And then they start telling him, that guy's a fucking, dude, that guy's a fucking like a prank caller. That guy's like notorious for like, dude, he's just messing with you. You know, stupid shit like that. That's bullshit. I know I would say we take calls. Westwood One is a station that takes calls, but to sit there and tell the fucking each host, because if you said we want you to take calls, but if you don't, that's okay. No, if you want your host to take calls, you got to hire hosts to take calls. You can't hire hosts that are going to take calls because you said so, but their heart isn't in it. And you can't hire hosts that are going to defy you. You got to hire hosts that like to be call involved. Fucking crack whore. Try one more time. I doubt it. And then he gives out the number too. So when he says he gives the number, that lets me know like I have to give out the number to let my bosses know in case they're listening that I'm giving out the number. So that way I could lie and say I gave out the number, no one called, because they don't have any proof if anyone called. But if I give out the number, I could say, hey, no one called. Why aren't you taking any calls? Well, because no one called. Well, if no one calls, maybe no one's listening. Maybe we should fire your ass. Anyways, I'm gonna sign out. It's fucking 7:02 Central. They're talking about the Rooney Rule with not being used and a bunch of people that are just satisfying the Rooney Rule by just interviewing people of color just to kind of with no intention of hiring them. So it's not working. They were talking about Pete Souza was talking about Jerry Jones did a phone call interview just to satisfy the rule. He just sitting at his desk and just made a phone call and had like a little 5-minute interview to say, hey, I'm interested in hiring you. You know, are you interested in coming? What do you bring? What do you bring to the table? And then just hung up. And it was Dennis Green. They couldn't think of the name. I put it in chat. They don't respond. It's almost like maybe Drake feels like, no, this guy is too important. We're not going to inundate it with calls, and we're going to utilize every second with this guy, you know. Or maybe Pete fucking says, I don't like taking phone calls. And so Drake says, all right, I'll honor that. You know what I mean? Maybe the same way like fucking when fucking Carmen DeHomo fucking at the tournament had that fucking the big chubby guy from fucking Barstool. Maybe he's like, I don't like taking calls. And Carmen's like, all right, fine, we won't take calls. And I won't get in trouble. Don't worry about it. I'll say the number out loud in case anyone hears. So I'm doing my job. And then I'll just lie to them and say no one called. And then if we take calls, we'll just put them on hold because don't worry, Eddie. Don't worry, Barstool Eddie. You don't want any calls? I'll break the rules for you and I won't get in trouble. They don't, hey, at ESPN 1000, they don't hold anyone's feet to the fire and they don't fucking hold anyone accountable. The fucking program director is my best buddy. He lets me break the rules and then he'll lie to his bosses in Wisconsin for me and he covers all of our tracks. We run this shit. Fuck Craig Karmazin. It's fucking all the hosts at ESPN and Danny Zetterman. We really run this shit and we just lie to Craig because he's a gullible bastard. That's how they are at ESPN 1000 Chicago. But my whole point was that Ian Cunningham, the Kansas City Chiefs, 2022 had Ryan Poles had Ryan Poles on their coaching staff back in like 2018, 17. I don't know. They had two practice squad players that were really bad. Ian Cunningham and Ryan Poles were both on the practice squad for 1 year. And they were so bad at being on the practice squad. Not only were they so bad at being so bad at football, they couldn't even make the team. They made the practice squad. And then they were so bad at the practice squad, they were fired after 1 year on the practice squad. But then they said, we'll put you in the front office as scouts. So then they work their way up from scout to this to that. They sit there and they sweep the floors. Then they wash the lettuce. Then they deep fry the French fries. Next thing you know, I'll be manager, you know? So anyways, the Bears then hire Ryan Poles, and the Chiefs get two compensatory third round picks because the Bears hired a man of color, and that the Chiefs had a scout that was washing the lettuce, and the Bears hired him to flip the burgers. And then Ryan Poles brings his butt buddy Ian Cunningham because they love cuddling. Nothing like the smell of your big flabby skin against mine. They were Brokeback Mountain. They go horseback riding in Kansas City. Then we're going to go horseback riding up in Illinois. It's true. It's damn true. And then Ian Cunningham's the assistant GM because of his buddy. He brings him along. And then Ian Cunningham gets hired to be a GM for Atlanta, but the Bears don't get in compensatory picks. So scout to GM is one thing, but an assistant GM to GM is not another. So either the Falcons are saying that either Ian Cunningham might be a general manager in title, but Matt Ryan is going to be doing all the general manager activities. So we shouldn't be giving up any picks because Matt Ryan's really going to be doing the GM. He's the president and the general manager, but it's kind of like you think about it, kind of like when you have an offensive-minded head coach who's an offensive coordinator. Take Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson's the head coach, but he's also doing the offensive coordinator duties. But they still have an offensive coordinator. Well, if Ben Johnson is the offensive coordinator, then why do they hire an offensive coordinator? Well, they just have one on title. Same thing with the defensive-minded coach. Bill Belichick's the defensive coordinator. Essentially, he does all the defensive coordinating. He still has a defensive coordinator. I think it was his son, right? Because he has to be the head coach and you have to have a defensive coordinator. But essentially, the defensive coordinator is just in title. He's not really doing the responsibilities. So if Louis Anderson, is the assistant manager of the McDowell's because he makes a certain amount of money washing lettuce and he works 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and he's getting paid all this in overtime, he actually makes more money as a lettuce washer than the assistant general manager does. Well, then shit, if we could make him the assistant general manager in paper, pay him a salary, save money because now he won't be making as much money, but he'll be the assistant manager and making less money than he did as a lettuce washer. But he's got a more powerful title. But he doesn't do any assistant manager duties. The general manager still will do the assistant manager duties, but we just call Louis Anderson the assistant general manager. But he still just washes lettuce and deep fries French fries. And he still works 60 hours a week, but now he makes less money because we pay him a salary because he's assistant manager, but he doesn't do anything. Kind of like when a producer on a TV show, like my Static Radio show I'm pitching. I might give production credits and you might be a producer, but that doesn't mean you're in the editing room with us and you're not in the writing room kind of producing the show, deciding what's going to happen. It's just a formality. It's just a title. That's how you get paid. You get a percentage. So you're a producer. You get a production credit, but you're not really actually involved in the actual production, right? Louis Anderson ain't involved in the managing of McDonald's. He's just the assistant manager just to structure how he gets paid so they could save money and rip him off. Hell, they might have him work 70 hours. And Ian Cunningham ain't a general manager of the Atlanta Falcons based on the duties he's going to do. Seems like Matt Ryan's going to be the general manager as far as the duties. But in title, well, Ian Cunningham's going to be the general manager. Just like, Belichick Jr. wasn't the defensive coordinator. Belichick, his dad was. So what's the difference? What job is your job? Based on what you do or what your official title is on a stupid business card? A little piece of paper this big. And so when Ian Cunningham then goes, the Bears don't get any compensatory picks, even though Ryan Poles got compensatory picks for the Chiefs because he's a person of color and he got hired away and advanced, right? And we took a person of color and did the same thing the Chiefs did, is we built him up and someone hired him away, but we don't get him. So either A, you're saying Ian Cunningham ain't really the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks, or Ian Cunningham ain't black enough, or Matt Ryan is blacker than Ian Cunningham. It just doesn't make sense. So you tell me. And let me say about this whole people just hiring or interviewing people of color just because they have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. Like, if you're a chef, a restaurant owner, and imagine if I'm looking for a head chef, and like if like Bobby Flay and Emeril Lagasse and motherfucking Wolfgang Puck all apply to be chefs, and I know I want one of them, and I want Wolfgang Puck, and I interview them, and now I gotta interview a black chef, and the only black person that applies is a guy named Tyrone Biggums. Hi there, I heard you need someone to cook some food. I once cooked a hot dog in 9 hours over a Zippo ladder. Hey, I make steak tartare in my garbage can all the time. So now I got to interview Tyrone Biggums, even though I'm not going to hire him. Even if it's a qualified chef. What if it's a good chef that has a resume, he's worked at a restaurant? But if I have Wolfgang Puck, now I got to waste this young African-American's time and interview him just to satisfy some rule. And then if I don't hire him, I'm criticized. But what if genuinely the best person for the job is a white person? The best coach available that'll help you win a Super Bowl is white. You're going to have to pass on him and take like a C+ black person or Hispanic person because, well, I want to make everyone happy. And then when you like win 12 games over the next 4 years, then you, the GM, get fired because you made a bad hire, but I didn't want to hire him. They made me hire him. I had Belichick all lined up, but I went with Tyrone Biggums and his garbage can steak tartare because I didn't want to be criticized by a bunch of college kids. I didn't want to be criticized by a bunch of, Gen Z social media misfits. God forbid my social media brand would be tarnished. You hire the best person for the job. And if it's white, he's white. And then what? Well, then Tyrone Biggums, maybe you could find a job for him. I could find him a job sweeping floors. Well, isn't that just convenient? Well, if I don't hire him, I'm racist because I'm not giving him a job, right? And it's just because he's black, I'm not giving him a job. But then when I give him a job, making minimum wage, sweeping floors, which could be a lot of money for him if he's homeless. Well, then now now that's oppression because, of course, why aren't you what do you want me to? You want me to put a suit on him and just like make him, assistant to the vice president and give him a salary of $300,000 that he didn't do? Well, he's got to be qualified for the job. So what happens when you're what if the coach you want to hire is white, and you want to do what's best for your team? You're gonna have to pass on him. You just and then so it's like I don't even want to waste. I found my coach. He happens to be white, but this is the best coach for the job. Did you interview any black people? And, well, no. Okay, well, how do you know a black person better for a job? Fine. But then you interview 3 or 4 black people, and you said, I still want the white guy. you can't call me racist, but even if you know you want the white guy, you can't say that the reason he wants the white guy is motivated because we both are similar races. I'm pretty sure a GM and an owner, they want to win. I don't know any owner that just wants to lose on purpose and just make sure they hire their fellow Caucasians. All right. I'm sure there are qualified white people and black people for coaching jobs. And if they want the black guy, they'll hire the black guy. There's no way that they're going to say the best candidate is a black guy, but I don't want to hire him because he's black and I'm going to hire a white guy because I think with our talent and we can win and a white guy's just calling the shots. It's not like that. It's not like kind of like basketball where if you just got a team with like, LeBron and Giannis and Bam, and you think, well, this team's going to easily win the championship. I could hire my nephew, Anthony Fallopian, or Todd Longfellow, my nephew who's 21. It's not like little big league. I'm going to hire my 12-year-old son Henry Mark Smith, and I'll make him the coach. Because with Jordan and Pippen and Rodman, we're going to win no matter what. So I'm just going to bring my white friend along, and he's never coached, and he'll be the coach, and he'll just get up and say, all right, guys, good luck, try your best, and I'll be cheering for you. And then when they win, he gets a ring, and he's like, look at me. What a great coach. Just like the GM that drafted LeBron. Is he a great general man? What a great draft pick. Wow, to take a chance on the high schooler with the number one pick? No. Come on, man. My left foot could have drafted. Come on, Daniel Day-Lewis could have drafted LeBron James with the number one pick. And he doesn't even know how to spell basketball. He spells it with a Q. So we could interview all the people of color we want, but if they know they're going to hire a black person, the only other thing you could do is basically force teams to hire a black person. Say, look, you can't just say you have to hire a black coach. I don't care about your team's success, and I don't care if you get fired. But if he's not ready for the coach, if a black person applies to be the head coach of a football team and you don't want to hire them, so then what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But then you got to give him some kind of job. So if you don't want to hire him from the job, but if he applies for the job of head coach and he's not the one, the fact that he applied for the head coach means you got to give him some kind of job. So look, you give him a call a month later. We've made our choice. It's not you. We thank you for coming in. But because of the Rooney Rule, I'd like to offer you the job of, office supervisor for our scouts. So you're basically just going to be supervising the scouts and the scout manager. So there's a bunch of scouts. Then there's a scout manager that basically gives them directions, says, hey, you scout, you're going to go scout these high schoolers. You're going to scout these college people. You're going to go to the Carolinas. You're going to go to the Northeast and go to these 6 high schools over the next month, or these 6 colleges. And you're going to scout these linemen and these linebackers. And you give them assignments. And then you're going to be the person that watches it all and make sure that nothing happens. No fights break out. And we'll pay you $40,000 a year. Well, that kind of sounds like a bouncer at a club. That sounds like you're a security guard. But I got to give you a job, because if I don't give you any job, that's racist. Why? Because Art Rooney said so. Because Art Rooney's children said so. So now the Rooneys make up the rules. And I understand their heart's in a good place, but it's a little unrealistic. An owner is going to pick the best person for the job, and because they want to win. And if they're black, they're black. They don't care. They're not going to lose on purpose. Now, if they're losing on purpose and they're tanking, I can see them hiring a white coach because they're like, look, we're not trying to win. I want good draft picks. You know what I mean? So we might as well just hire a white guy and give him the money. But then if they're going to lose on purpose and they were really racist, wouldn't they then say, well, black people aren't smart enough to be coaches, and I'm a racist coach, and I'm a racist owner, and I want to tank, and I want to get good draft picks the next couple of years? Wouldn't they hire a black person and say, hey, look at me, I hired a black person to be the coach? And in their head, they're thinking, okay, so I checked a lot of boxes. I made everyone happy because I hired a black coach. But in his head, he's thinking, yeah, but I hired him because he's bad and he's going to lose on purpose. Kind of like the Cleveland Indians in Major League. You have this whole team of bad players because she's trying to lose on purpose so she can move the team to Miami. You figure, well, if I'm really racist and I want to lose on purpose, I'd hire a black coach because I think black coaches can't coach football. So, of course, I hire a black coach. They lose. We get draft picks. And then in 3 or 4 years, after we get 3 or 4 good top 5 draft picks, then I fire him and I say, hey, look, the records wasn't good. I gave him a chance. He didn't succeed, but you could see I gave him a chance. Then I bring in a white coach with all the talent we got because the black coach failed. And of course, I hired a black coach because I thought, I mean, a racist person that was losing, wanted to lose on purpose, would hire a black coach because they'd probably be afraid that the white coach might actually be too good, right? So there's all these arguments that you could go with no solid proof or data behind it. It's just going to be a constant argument. And really, the Rooneys are saying that black people deserve better opportunities. And they do get opportunities. They get opportunities to showcase their skills every day. And yeah, maybe they're not the majority of coaches and behind front of the office jobs. But that's just the nature of our country. And to sit there and just all of a sudden start having more than 50% black employees, even if they're not qualified, just because that's a nice thing to do, well, that's reparations. Now we're just giving away money and jobs to people that are you got to be qualified. And even if you are qualified, doesn't mean there aren't people that are more qualified. And it sucks when there's multiple people that are qualified for one job. You got to pick one. Well, they're probably going to pick their friend or someone that they trust. They're probably going to pick a friend, which would be a white person. And they're going to pick someone they trust if they don't have any friends. And it should be the person with the best record, right? But if that person they trust is a black person, they'll hire them. They just will. If they think that's the person that's going to win. And if they really think all of them can win, yeah, they'll probably pick it white. And that's just, they're going to pick the white coach. And that's just the way it is. I think the Hispanic coach, the two white coaches, and the black coach are all going to help my team win. They're all good enough. So then who do I choose? Fine. They might choose the white guy. Well, that's just the way it is. And it sucks. And I get it. But if they really think that the black person is the right person for the job, they will hire them. You know, so you can't really talk about the Rooney Rule and hiring. What you need to do is start forcing every team to hire black interns to start out like you got to make sure that like 50% of the introductory coaches that are usually like the assistant to the linebackers coach, the assistant to the wide receivers coach, an equipment manager, you know, you have to say everyone has to have more than 50% of these low level positions have to be of African Americans. And then they all get an opportunity to work their way up. But even if they're qualified to get promoted to a linebackers coach or a special teams coach, or from assistant to the special teams coach to the assistant to the running backs coach, even if they're qualified, what's stopping the guy from saying, hey, you were the assistant to the linebackers coach for 4 years. You did a great job. You know, unfortunately, you know, we just don't think it's going to work out, or we didn't see enough, and you let him go. Well, is that racist? No. If it's like look, you just didn't qualify. You can't just force us to say, look, I'm going to hire you, and in 10 years, you'll be a head coach. And it's out of my hands. The NFL controls the owner's team, not the owner controls the owner's team. So it's all bullshit. You can always get around it. And you'll never be able to, you just can't go calling white people racist because they hire a white person. I mean, you just can't call everyone a racist just because. You know what I mean? Oh, look, you own a restaurant and you have 10 waiters. 7 of them are white and 3 of them aren't white. You're a racist? No. What do you mean? How do you know? I had 15 people apply. You know, what if the 3 minorities are the only 3 people that applied? What do you want me to just go find some black teenager at a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a Taco Bell or a McDonald's and say, hey, I want to give you a waiting job at my fine dining steakhouse because I want to show the world that I'm giving opportunities. And he's sitting there chewing his gum. He's high as hell. And he's like, I don't know anything about steak. Who cares if you know anything about steak? Just put the apron on. You write down stuff on a piece of paper and I'll pay you a lot of money. That's what we've been doing to white people. So you get the same treatment. That's not really true. You know, you do need some qualifications. And it all starts with colleges. It all starts with high schools, you know, giving, you know, kids that are 18 to 21 and they're people of color and high schools, allowing them to have jobs as assistant coaches or assistant coordinators for their high school. So they could hopefully, you know, build their resume and get jobs at Division II schools or Division I schools as assistant defensive coordinator, or you know, or you know, someone that assists the special teams by just writing stuff on a clipboard, organizing. And by the time they're 30, maybe they'd be qualified for an NFL job as an assistant or in the back of the office because they spent the last 7 or 8 years working from high school to Division II to Division I, instead of just coming into an NFL team. Say, I got no experience with an NFL team, but you know, I used to, you know, I won a Division II championship over at Alcorn State. And it's like that resume is not impressive. So how do we build their resume? It all starts with Division II schools, Division III schools. It all starts with high school. But if they don't hire them, are they racist? I don't know. Are we going to go around to every single high school and Division III school and start taking track of how many white people are there, at the lower level of the pyramid of coaches and specialists? Your physical therapist is white. That's racist. Hire this guy. He doesn't know much about physical therapy, but if your players get injured, he's not going to be able to take care of them as well. But at least you gave a black guy a job. It's too much that you're never going to prove, and it's just pressure. Just telling $1 billion company, if we have enough picket signs, you'll do what we say. And I really truly believe all owners want to win. They're going to hire the best person for the job. They're not just going to hire some black guy to fill in. They're going to hire a black guy if he is the best person to coach the team to victory. And if the owner doesn't know anything about football, they have a GM. Now, if they hire a GM and the GM, if they hire a white person that isn't qualified, they're going to be risking getting fired. If that white coach is bad and they know it, but they're only hiring because it's white, they're risking their job. Why are they going to risk like a $5, $8, $10 million job a year and possibly their future and never get another GM job? Because they're going to look like every time you GM a team, they suck. Well, that's because I'm focusing on hiring white people and not the best. Well, then you're never going to get a job. And there's your future. Over the next 30 years of your life, you might lose $100 million, $40 million, whatever. Why are you going to jeopardize that? It just doesn't make any sense that people would possibly throw away money because of their secret, closeted, white, systemic power beliefs or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, money's money. And trust me, the most racist white GM or racist white owner, if they know by hiring a black person, they'll put an extra $100 million in their pocket for their children and grandchildren, they'll do it because everyone loves money. And the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's from the Middle East. Does he have to do the Rooney Rule? If he hires all white people, is he racist? Interesting question, right? You could comment below and let me know. I'm Carl Grabowski. It's July 23rd, 7:25. Try calling the Drake Toll Show. Probably not going to get in. Let me see one more time. We'll get the busy sign and then I'll sign off. I hope everything I said makes sense. Because Stephen A. Smith said, you know what? You get the compensatory picks for the Chiefs, but the Bears don't get it for Cunningham, but the Chiefs get it for Paul. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And Chris Rock says, it does make sense. Ryan Post is blacker than Ed Cunningham, and Matt Ryan is blacker than them both. Ryan is for Ryan Dog. Why do they call it Villanova? I don't live in a villa, and I don't drive a Chevy Nova. Anyways, I'm signing off. They're not answering. Peace the fuck out. Bears 9-8. And please, to the guy from New Girl and the wrestler Seth Rollins, stop drinking some fucking Kool-Aid. Shit. I just shit my pants a little bit. I gotta go wipe my ass. And I'm out of fucking toilet paper. But hey, the shit that came out of my ass was brown, so at least you know my anus isn't racist. I'll talk to you next time. Bear the fuck down. God bless you. And remember, wherever you go, there you are. Stupid questions deserve stupid answers. And how the fuck can you ever look in the mirror and put a smile on your face if you can't see your soul? All right, I gotta go eat my asshole with my fingers. It's a spoon. Look.